I don't think very few people set out to go after capital I Impossible. Most people go after one small I Impossible and they go, oh, wow, look what I accomplished. What else can I accomplish? And then it's another one, and then it's another one. And even the folks listening to this who founded companies that are working in impossible spaces, most of them worked their way in there slowly. There were a bunch of smaller wins that led to these future challenges. And I think what's important about impossible, you asked a question about like, why does this matter to people? And I think what matters is that small I Impossible is going after those small I seems to be the foundation of all of our lives. In a sense, we're built, the way I like to explain it is I like to say we're built to go big.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Extraordinary leaders often want to create the impossible. Creating the impossible is not truly impossible. In fact, what we look at today with the author of The Art of Impossible, Steven Kotler, is about really some of the details and depth of what does it take to connect to your core biology that aligns you to creating what's impossible to you. What I really mean by that is, what is it you have to be aware of that you're not aware of now that will allow you to play at a higher level? Steven researches the really important things of high performance. He really runs the gamut of understanding what flow is and creativity and what motivation is and all of the things necessary for you to play at a higher level. Steven is the executive director of Flow Research Collective. He's also the author of The Art of Impossible, which I've already said. But what we talk about today goes beyond just the surface levels of how do you get more done, but what's really going on behind the scenes. We look at goals. In fact, what do you get wrong in your understanding of goals, and what can you do to better apply this new understanding to achieve the impossible in your own life? Steven is an expert in all things flow and all things human performance. So I'm excited to share this with you today. Before we get into this, I want to remind you that if you are a leader looking to play game at a higher level, to do extraordinary things and to go beyond what you believe is possible, then you want to make sure you check out Fast Growth Boardroom. We have a collection of people that are coming together that are fast growth leaders. They're the founders, CEOs, and presidents of Inc. level companies. These are the top 1% in terms of revenue growth across the world. When you think about your next step as a leader, are you clear about what it is? Would you like to be surrounded and supported by others that understand the chaos of fast growth? Well, check out Fast Growth Boardroom. All you have to do is, if it's a fit for you, you would apply. Now, you're not committing to joining us because we want to make sure we bring in the right people. We will look over your application and invite you to a conversation to allow you to understand if this is a fit for you and what you would get out of it. But we also really want to make sure that you are going to add to the community of fast growth leaders. So check out fastgrowthboardroom.com. Now here is the conversation with Steven. Steven, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Gene?
Fantastic. Excited to talk to you about this newest book you have out, but you really are someone that I admire for the work you've done, the impact you've made. I think you're mostly known for your research on flow and how to connect to it. But I'm going to let you kind of start where you want to. Where do you want to begin today's conversation?
Well, the easiest place for me to start the story is sort of where the story starts, because it's an easy way of explaining my whole career in a kind of a hopefully a quick format. I started as a journalist in the early 1990s, studying those moments in time when the impossible becomes possible. And I did this in almost every domain you can imagine, whether sports, science, technology, whatever. And it turns out whenever you see the impossible become possible, you see two things as a general rule. You see people harnessing disruptive, accelerating technology. So 6 of my books have been about how do you harness disruptive, accelerating technology. And the other thing you see is people figuring out how ways to extend human capability. And thus 7 of my books have looked at that side of the equation. And on that side of the equation, because often at the heart of peak performance, you see the state of consciousness known as flow, which is what I'm, as you pointed out, best sort of known for. I also started the Flow Research Collective, where we study the neurobiology of flow. So what's going on in the brain and the body when people are in flow and performing at their best. So that's sort of like the quick and dirty. People who've accomplished the impossible was my core data set. And, you know, the two ways that happens in the world, I spent my career looking at.
So I appreciate you framing that in for us. We're here to talk about mostly The Art of Impossible, which is your newest book. And I've really enjoyed reading it. We were just talking before we cut the recorder on. I enjoy it. There's a lot of new information in here, which I think is really great when you read a book and you talk to so many people that you have new information, but it's not the easiest read for me. I have to really think about what you're saying and how it connects together. You've done a great job of really going into the depths of it. But I always ask authors this one question: why did this book have to be written?
Well, that book had to be written because nobody else was doing it, in all honesty. I mean, so what the Art of Impossible, over the past 10 years, the science of peak performance has accelerated massively. The same kind of exponential technology that's driving change everywhere in the world has been showing up, especially in neuroscience. And we've gotten really good at kind of understanding the neuroscience of peak performance. There have been tons of books written about bits of this story. There's books on focus, there's books on grit, there's books on flow, there's books on motivation, there's books on creativity and learning, et cetera, et cetera. What has happened over the past 10 years, we've started to realize that one, peak performance is nothing more or less than getting our biology to work for us rather than against us. And that biology, while it's a vast category in a sense, it's actually a limited set of skills. And those are this individual books that everybody's been writing, focus or mindfulness or mindset or take your pick. But it turns out when you look at this, the neurobiology of all these skills, they're a system. And they're designed to work together. They're designed to work in a specific order. And it's not like, you know, if you're working on grit skills, you don't know the whole system, it's not going to help. But if you know the order and everything, the way the entire system is designed to work and work in order, you just get farther faster with a whole lot less fuss. So over the past 10 years, we've discovered one, that almost everybody is capable of far more than they know. And two, if you're interested in really extending your capability, there's a formula. It's based on our biology. We've managed to decode it over the past 10 years. And because flow is optimal performance, it optimizes everything that's being optimized. So because of the work I've been doing on flow, had the big picture. And everybody else, there are experts at components in this picture who know far more than I'll ever know. Scott Barry Kaufman, who is the world's leading expert on creativity, and he's one of my coaches in the Flow Research Collective. So if you take one of our trainings, he might be your coach. He knows far more about creativity than I'll ever know. But how it comes together, how it fits together, that is information that I had a sort of first look at because of the work I was doing on flow. It's the big picture. And because of that, I started to see how these things were working together. And I got to bring this completely around really to your audience. You know, I did a lot of work with Peter Diamandis, Singularity University. I saw a lot of amazing people trying to start a lot of amazing companies to solve really big challenges in the world that need solving. Water scarcity, energy scarcity, you know, all this sort of stuff. And, you know, my books celebrate the success stories. But for every story in the book, there's 1,000 stories of almost there. And usually if you dig under the hood of where'd the failure come from, it's not the entrepreneurial challenge. It's not even the business challenge. It's often people tripping over their own biology, tripping over their own kind of basic stuff. I don't know how to solve hunger in Africa. I don't know how to solve energy scarcity in the Middle East, but I do know how to solve this particular problem. So I think that's why I wrote this book now.
Let me take a break here for a second. If you are listening to this on your phone, you're at the gym, you're in your car, I really want to appreciate you. But you also want to make sure you tune into YouTube. We have some content on YouTube that we only put there, a little bit more visual. Some of the things that you need to be the extraordinary leader that you are is on YouTube. Just go to genehammett.com/YouTube. We'll see you there. You know, you keep talking about the biology of it, and there's a lot of stuff in the book that I want to make sure we highlight for the audience, because we won't be able to go into the depths of it. But a lot of time we are working against biology, and if we understood how we're working against it, we might have a better chance to make it work for us. So can you give us an example of working against that biology?
Simple example in the world is the book starts with When you talk about that biology, by the way, all we're really talking about is there's a bunch of skills that get filed under the heading of motivation. There's a bunch of skills that get filed under the heading of learning. There's a bunch of skills under the heading of creativity. And then there's a bunch of skills under the heading of flow. And why those four things, if you just want to think about it in any situation, peak performance is what gets you into the game. Motivation is what gets you into the game. Learning allows you to continue to play. Creativity, especially if you're trying to solve entrepreneurial challenges or hard challenges where there's no clear path between where you are and where you're going. Creativity is how you steer, and flow, because it is sort of the source code of optimal performance, and we're all hardwired for it, is how you turbo boost the results kind of beyond all reasonable expectations. That's the full suite of things. But motivation is where it starts. And I spend a lot of time talking about intrinsic motivators: curiosity, passion, purpose, autonomy, mastery. You hear a lot about that in the tech world, the entrepreneurial world, in the business world, but people mystify why these things matter. Why does intrinsic motivation matter? Well, one of the big deals is it gives you focus for free. When we face any challenge, there's only two things we can work with. There's this thing we're doing, like the skill itself, and then there's the amount of attention we're bringing to the situation. Now, skills, as we all know, we can train them up, but it takes a long time. It's a slow process. So if you're looking for a big, fast lever, focus is that lever, right? And now the brain, it's an energy hog. It consumes 25 to 30% of your energy at rest. So when you're trying to pay attention to something difficult, it's burning tons of calories, and we have a limited reserve. So why does curiosity matter? Because we get focus for free. When we're curious about subjects, we automatically pay attention to the subjects. Passion is even more focus for free than curiosity. Purpose goes beyond passion, and so forth. So these big intrinsic motivators, why do we start talking about them? One of the big deals is focus for free. And we all know how difficult it is to try to pay attention to something or learn something or do something that we're not interested in, where we're not motivated to do it. It's difficult. That's a simple example. We can go on from there, but that's easy.
One of the reasons why I'm excited about having you on the show, Steven, is because a lot of the people I work with, a lot of the founders listening in today's episode really are trying to create something impossible. And maybe they've already created something impossible and they're trying to extend it into the impact and make a bigger, legacy in the world.
Sure.
But when you think about creating the impossible, frame it in like this, why this is so important as we as humans evolve.
Wow. That's a really big question. That may be above my pay grade. When I talk about impossible, God, you're asking a different question. I don't know how to answer. I don't know how to frame the impossible.
Why is impossible important? So a lot of people think impossible is we shouldn't go after impossible.
Well, I don't. Okay. So what I can tell you is this. I wrote the book in lessons learned from studying people who've accomplished what I call capital I impossible, that which has never been done. But the book is for people who are interested in small I impossible, that which you think is impossible for yourself. It's those small I impossibles. A lot of them are, things we're familiar with: rising out of poverty, overcoming trauma, getting paid for what you love, becoming a successful entrepreneur, becoming world-class at anything, becoming a successful artist or writer or creator. All those things are small I impossible. And it turns out it doesn't actually matter if you're interested in capital I impossible or small I impossible, or you're listening to this and going, dude, I don't know about impossible. I just want it to be easier on Monday when I go back to work, right? Like whatever. It turns out the biology is the same, right? The tool set is the same. How we would go A to B is the same. And that is available to all of us. And I also want to say, I don't think very few people set out to go after capital I impossible. Most people go after one small I impossible and they go, wow, look what I accomplished. What else can I accomplish? And then it's another one. And then it's another one. And even the folks listening to this who founded companies that are working in impossible spaces, most of them worked their way in there slowly. There were a bunch of smaller wins that led to these huger challenges. And I think what's important about impossible, you asked a question about like, why does this matter to people? And I think what matters is that small I impossible is going after those small I, it seems to be the foundation of all of our lives. But in a sense, we're built, the way I like to explain it is I like to say we're built to go big, and not going big is actually bad for us. And that, I don't mean this in a ridiculous way. For example, we started this conversation talking about 5 intrinsic motivators, the big 5 that I talk about in my book, motivate in the motivation category, just curiosity, passion, purpose, and then there's autonomy and mastery. These are big 5. So when I say human beings are designed to go big, we're designed to rise to our full capability, or as the psychologist Abraham Maslow once said, whatever a person can be, they must be. We're built to go after these impossible challenges. And we don't, we have problems. What I mean by that is there are 8 major causes of depression. 2 of them get a lot of attention, which are trauma, something bad happened to me, I can't get over it, and genetics. I can't make enough serotonin or norepinephrine or whatever to be happy. And it turns out those are not actual real categories. As a general rule, your genetics, well, you can have genetic issues. It's only 50% of the equation ever, meaning it's genetics plus lifestyle choices or things that are going on in the world. And trauma, if you look at the data, most of the time, trauma leads to post-traumatic growth. Something bad happened and I got stronger as a result of it. Very rarely does it actually lead to depression and anxiety. So depression and anxiety are at epidemic levels right now. 1 out of 10 adults will be diagnosed with them this year. Somebody kills themselves once every 12 seconds. This is, I mean, like we're losing this epidemic. It's a crisis at a global level. There are 6 major causes that are left. They're all things like lack of meaningful work. Well, what does lack of meaningful work mean when you break it apart? It's work that you're not curious about, that you're not passionate about, that doesn't align with your purpose and your core values, that you don't have the autonomy to pursue in the way you think you should pursue it, and it doesn't afford you the opportunity for mastery. I could go through the other 5 major causes of depression that they're all more of the same. The system is designed to work a certain way. It's designed to go big. We're designed to go after these impossible challenges, and not doing so appears not to be particularly good for us, which is, I think, the other reason we want to go after them.
I want to take a moment and look at this small I am possible, because many times we leaders have to really understand what's impossible for others and what's impossible for ourselves. We don't want to confuse the fact that what's impossible for ourselves, because typically we're able to break through those barriers if we really want to commit ourselves. After the interview, I had a conversation with Steven about compound interest. If you think about small little daily increments and steps forward over time will allow you to have the breakthrough that you can't even imagine today. It's like compound interest. But if you really want to create the impossible, you want to make sure you tune in to what those small steps are, do them consistently, day in, day out. 3 years from now, 5 years from now, maybe it's 10 years from now, you'll look back and realize that you have shown up consistently to become the person that you are today that can truly create something that's impossible now. I just want to take a moment and put a spotlight on that for you today. Now back to Steven. I want to dive into one of the things I learned in the book from you and share that with the audience because I think it's very valuable. Again, we're talking about The Art of Impossible, your newest book, Steven. It's really about goals. You make a distinction between clear goals, high hard goals, and an MTP goal. Give us that breakdown and kind of help us understand why we get it wrong sometimes.
We are goal-directed machines. Human beings are. In fact, we don't even live in reality. Most of the information that actually makes it through our brains filtering mechanisms, it's either our fears, stuff we're scared of, or our goals, stuff we're interested in going after. That's much of the information we take in all the time. So goal setting is phenomenal. You want more motivation in your life? Set goals. And what kind of goals? Well, it turns out the biology tells us that humans need 3 tiers of goals to get maximum efficiency. There are what I call a massively transformative purpose, mission level goals at the top. Underneath those are high, hard goals. And underneath those are clear goals. Think of it this way. Let's say your mission is, I want to write books that change the world. High, hard goals are all the sub-steps you would have to take to achieve that mission level goal. Get a degree in journalism, get a job on a newspaper and learn how to cover stories, write a book about cooking, write a book about fit, whatever you want to write. High, hard goals are like 1 to 5 year action plans. And when you want to talk about getting your biology work for you rather than against you, here's another one. Simply by setting proper high heart goals, you get an 11 to 25% boost in motivation. That's incredible. Now, high heart goals are not what you're going to be doing today. Today, you need clear goals. These are the tiny, chunked down versions of your high heart goals. That's what you're going to do today. So today, if your high heart mission statement goal is, I want to write books that change the world, and your high heart goal that you're on is, I want to write a book about fishing, today, you want to write 500 words in that book about fishing. That's a clear goal. It's a daily action plan. And when you have all three tiers of goals and you know how to set them reliably, you get a lot of boost in motivation and energy, essentially because when I started by saying we are goal-directed systems, we simply get where we're wanting to go a hell of a lot faster if the system knows where it's going. And the more precise you can be in goal setting, the better. Clarity really matters, especially, by the way, on the daily action plans. A lot of people, especially Westerners, especially entrepreneurs, they hear goals and they think about outcome goals. I want, to hit the sales figure. That's not what I'm talking about. These are process goals, goals that you can control whether or not you achieve them. Outcome goals, that's outside your control. Process goal, I'm going to write 500 words today in my new book, and it's going to make the reader feel happy or scared or excited, take your pick. That's a very clear goal and really important, because when you say clear goals, as I said to Westerners, we hear goals and we focus on the goals. We don't hear clear, and the real importance there is clarity.
Let's take another moment here with Steven. These clear goals, how does that really show up in our lives? Well, I'll share with you how I've been using them. The clear goals really represent how you're showing up each day. Specifically, what are you getting done and how you're committing to being consistent over time. When I take a moment to do this at the end of the day, list out what I'm going to accomplish. I'm thinking about what I have already done, what's missing, but also specifically what needs to get done. Now, I'm also looking at this with the filter of a leader of a company. I have a team behind me, and I know that I can't continue to do all the things myself. So I'm constantly looking at what should I be doing versus what someone else should be doing for the organization. I want to make sure you understand what's important about that, because when you let go of the day-to-day task, you no longer become the bottleneck and you actually become a stronger leader, more of a visionary. Empowering someone else gives them a step toward really serving the organization a new way, gives them confidence, and that's part of your job as a leader, is connecting with others around this whole idea of growth. This is the way I use clear goals. Hopefully it'll help you use them too. Steven, one of the things that I think is really powerful for this group that are listening in here, they're pushing hard. They probably have the MTP goals. They have a high hard goal, but they're not sure when to unplug, and they try to keep it going. You have some theories around this. I think yours is you target 9 clear goals. Is that right?
Every day? In a day?
Yeah.
In a day. Depends on the day. Depends on what the first chunk is. But yeah, 9 to 11 in a day.
But you have probably wrestled with this, but you like to unplug once you've done this.
Yeah. So couple of things, especially with hard charging executives, super critical. You have to. So we teach, there are 6 levels of grit. Once you've got proper goal setting, the next thing that you have to deal with is grit. Now, we're not going to talk about 5 of the levels. The last one is the grit to recover. Recovery is key. For hard charging executives, the biggest problem they're going to face is burnout. And we have found, the research is pretty clear, that if you have regular access to flow and an active recovery protocol, and you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, it's very difficult to burn out. So 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, that's clear. Regular access to flow, we can talk about that in a minute. What the hell is an active recovery protocol? Your body, you're literally forcing yourself to calm down. You're actually shifting your state a little bit. What works really well? Long walks in nature, by the way, work really, really well. Epsom salt baths, saunas, dry. We have an infrared sauna in our house that I use almost daily. Restorative yoga. This is not fitness yoga. This is restorative yoga. Mindfulness, breath work, any kind of focus meditation. There are other options, getting a massage. And the point with an active recovery protocol is, and with setting clear goals, as you pointed out, you got to figure out in clear goals, how many things you can be excellent at in a day, And that's how many things go on your clear goal list. And at the end of being excellent, and for me, it's like 9 things a day, and then I'm out of juice. I have an active recovery protocol. And I will probably take an Epsom salt bath or get in a sauna or go for a hike every day. Like that. This is a daily thing for me. And we really try to train up peak performers. And the reason we train it as a grit skill is because peak performers don't like shutting it down. It's really hard to figure out that I need a recovery protocol. But the point is, in peak performance, a lot of times, and this is not everywhere, but this is one of those places, you have to go slow to go fast. And this is one of those spots. And your actual work output, your speed will massively increase, and you'll cut down on burnout. And burnout is you start moving backwards, right? The quality of your work gets so bad that you're actually moving backwards. And that's what crushes a lot of entrepreneurs.
Steven, I appreciate you sharing this with us today, because I think a lot of people have the tendency to push toward that burnout. And they don't understand what it is particularly. One of the things I took away from the book really is that end of the day protocol. So you'll spend 5 or 10 minutes planning your next day so that you know what those clear goals are. I found that to be very powerful for my own performance and what I'm doing. So I really want to appreciate you bringing that, highlighting.
Yeah, it's so clear goals. This is getting into the flow side of the equation. Flow states of optimal performance, where you get so focused on everything, on what you're doing, that everything else just sort of disappears. And in that state, all aspects of performance, both mental and physical, tend to go through the roof. So how can we get more flow? That's a really core question. Clear goals. What's the thing that you're feeling? This is exactly it. Flow, without getting too complicated scientifically, the state only shows up when all our attention is in the right here, right now, right? You got to be focusing on the thing you're doing. And flow states have triggers, preconditions that lead to more flow. And all they do is they drive attention to the present moment. And they do it one of 3 ways. The way clear goals work is they work by lowering cognitive load. Cognitive load is all the shit you're trying to pay attention to at any one moment. And it weighs a lot, and it slows your brain down, and you have limited RAM. Limited working memory. There's only a limited number of things you can actually pay attention to. Your brain is always trying to figure out, what am I doing? What am I doing next? Right? Like your goals for the day is this takes something that your brain is always thinking about. When you create a clear goals list, you're exporting all that crap onto a piece of paper, and it lowers cognitive load. So what you're experiencing is a whole bunch of energy that you can then repurpose for focus and attention and higher quality work. And that's what it's doing. It also is probably lowering anxiety, because there's a part of your brain that is always trying to figure out, am I doing everything that I should be doing right now? And there's something else that's more important, like all that stuff. And even, for those of us who have executive assistants or, all these other outside peripherals that sort of handle this, I still wake up and I do this by hand to end every night. That's my clear goals list from last night, and it's for today. Today it's 13 things.
I got to ask you, and this will be a final question. I saw the 8 or 9 clear goals that you have in there. What's the paragraph underneath it?
That's my daily gratitude practice. You want to manage anxiety for peak performance, for sure. And positive psychology has spent really 30 years looking at this question of what's the best ways to manage anxiety. And what the science shows is there are 3. You can do a 5-minute daily gratitude practice. You can do an 11-minute to 20-minute focused breathing meditation. You can get 20 to 40 minutes of exercise. Basically exercise until it's sort of quiet upstairs. These are the 3 best ways to lower anxiety. What we train our clients to do, what I talk about a little bit in The Art of Impossible, is, hey, under normal conditions, do 1 a day, right? And if you're super busy, gratitude is often the easiest one to reach for, because it's 5 minutes long. But all of these things lower cortisol levels, and they lower norepinephrine levels. They automatically calm the brain and the body down. And too much cortisol blocks learning, it blocks creativity, it blocks focus, it blocks a whole bunch of crap. So I end my day the same way every day. I take 5 minutes to write a clear goals list for the next morning. So I know by the moment my ass hits the chair, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm going to do next. I know what I'm doing next. A, and B, I did the gratitude list the night before so that when I unplug, right, what gratitude does is it basically reminds your brain of all the good things that are happening in your life. Gratitude works because it's stuff that's real. Like, I am so happy and grateful my limbs worked all day today. My brain has an automatic bullshit detector. If I'm so happy and grateful I'm a millionaire and I'm working at Walmart, my brain goes, shut the hell up, man. You work at Walmart. You're not a millionaire, right? You can't lie to yourself, basically. Gratitude is stuff that already happened. As a result, it literally tilts the amount of negative information the brain takes in. You start taking in more positive information, start noticing more positive things. For entrepreneurs, this is really important because you also start noticing more opportunity. And right, fear will limit your ability to notice opportunity, which is really important for kind of founders, for entrepreneurs, for a lot of your listeners. So that's the other half. That's that paragraph is my daily gratitude practice.
I appreciate you sharing us a peek into your own world. It's not just something that you write about it for others, but you're living this. And that's really is a great way.
The funny thing is people ask me this all the time. They're like, what do you do? What do you do? And I'm like, you get to the Art of Impossible, you'll see there's a bunch of onboarding practices. Last chapter, there's 6 daily practices and 7 weekly practices. That's exactly what I do. That's exactly what the 70 people who work for me do. It's exactly what everybody I train do. Like, that's what the biology seems to say is what works best. So that's what we do.
Steven, thanks for being on Growth Think Tank. We really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you.